Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at lists, which are almost exclusive to Python. You won't find them in many other languages. And hopefully we'll end up by making a list of important items. So I'm sure when I say list, you think of a to-do list or a shopping list. All of those just have strings. You've got the text there. But in Python, you can have lists with anything in. In some languages, you have to say exactly what you want in your list, for example, integers, and exactly how long your list has got to be, for example, 100 values. But in Python, it automatically figures out how long to make your list and adjusts to whatever you put in it. So let's look at defining lists. So you've actually got two options, but either way, you've got the name of your list, use an equal sign as though it's a variable, and then you put square brackets or curly brackets, and then each item separated by a comma, and you can have as many as you want. One thing to note is that if you put these curly brackets around instead of the square brackets, it's immutable, which means that you can no longer edit it. And so if you want to change an item, then that won't be possible. So let's give this a go. So first I'm going to say my list is equal to, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to say my list 2 is equal to, this time I'm going to put round brackets and say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to print my list and then print my list 2. We're going to run that. And there we go, and you can see it's printed them out. First one with square brackets and the second one with round brackets. Okay, but what if, for example, I want to print them out on new lines? And that's where the special kind of spill function kicks in. And lots of languages have these. In Python it's a star. So if I put a star, it takes the list, separate out all the values, and does them as separate arguments. So if we do that with my list but not with my list 2, then run it again. Put them out on a new line, we just set the separation equal to a new line character. And we can do the same here. And then we'll end up with the numbers 1 to 10, because they're two separate lists, printed with new lines in between them. And so this star function can be very useful because it then takes in, because print is a function, it then takes in all of these numbers individually and then converts it into a list. And so for example, let's say you're adding up numbers, you might have a sum function that takes in any number of values, and if you just put a list in, you've only got capability for one. But let's say we wanted to print out these lists together. So now what we can do is we can print my list 1 and then my list 2. And because it's got the star, it's going to still both of these. And so I'll do that again. And there we go. It's taken both of these in as separated values. So that's the same as saying print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, obviously with the set equal to a new line. And you can just check that by running it. And it should print it out twice, so yeah, there we go. But what if we didn't have the star, we printed out both lists? Well, you kind of expect we're going to have these two lists printed separately on new lines. There we go. And then everything else printed as usual. And that's why that spill character is really useful. And it's not just the print function, pretty much any function you can use it. But what if instead of printing out the whole list, you just wanted to print out, for example, the first item? What you can do is you can access it using the name, so the identifier, and then an index. So let's try that. So I'm going to print out, let's say the first value of this list and the second value of this list. I'm going to print my list 1, and it's always got to be square brackets, even though we've defined it with curly brackets. The way you access arrays is by using those square brackets. I'll print out the second value, and then we'll run it. And strangely, it's printed out the second value and the third value. And so that kind of seems odd, but if you think about it from a computer point of view, what actually happens is that you start with the number 0. So if you think about it, a computer stores numbers. If you start at 0, then you've got one less number that needs storing, because otherwise you're wasting that value 0 and it means nothing. And so you can see that it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But you can see it gets even better because you can go backwards and you can get negative indices where this is the last thing in the list and the second last thing, the third last thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to print out the first thing, and let's say we want third last thing, so we'll print -3. And now we'll run it and we get 1 and 8. And then another thing you can do is you can actually change the values midway through. Let's say we wanted this, instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we want it to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 for whatever reason. So we can say that my list, then want to change the 5th value to put in number 4, is equal to 6. And let's say here we want to change the first value so that it's equal to 5. So we're in essence swapping them, so say my list 2. And again, 0 is equal to, and this time we say 5. So we'll run it again. And you can see that it says a type error has occurred and a tuple object does not support item assignment. And what that means is, because this is immutable and we've declared it with these curly brackets, it's not actually a list, it's become a tuple, which is like a list except that you can't edit it. And that's, I guess, the only way really that you have things that are constant in Python. And so we can just fix this error by converting it back to a list instead of a tuple, and then we'll run it again. And we'll print out these lists at the end, maybe together. Run it, and we should just get a list of numbers with 5 and 6 swapped over. And there we go. Okay, so let's say we want to add the number 11 to my list 2 and make it longer. Well, what we could do is we could say that my list 2 and then number 5 is equal to, and then we'll say 11. So we'll run it, and you can see that it says list assignment index is out of range. So actually, once you declare a list, you can't make it longer in this way. There are other ways to make it longer, but we'll see that next time, because there are a wide range of other functions that you can do that don't just make it longer. So what if you have a list and you don't know how long it is, and you can use this special len item which tells you how long a list is. And so I'm going to actually add in a string as well. We call it my string. It's going to be equal to, let's say, string. I just put a 0 on the end. So now we know that string is 7 characters. And I'm going to go ahead and print the lengths of my list 2, and my string, because a string is really just a list of characters or letters. And so lots of the array functions work exactly the same with strings as with lists. However, even though a string is a lot like an array, in Python you're not able to edit them in the same way. So if we tried using assignment, then that wouldn't work. But if we say print my string -1, it will print that number on the end. But if we wanted to change it from string 01 to my string and then set it equal to a 1 instead of a -1, and it's got to be a character rather than a number, you can see it can print the length of the list, print the length of the other list, then get the last letter of the string, but when you try and assign it, it doesn't support item assignment. And so that's mostly what you need to know for arrays on a basic level, but we'll have a look at more advanced array functions. For example, adding, removing stuff, reversing them, and so on. So now let's say you want to make a list of important items. So I'm going to say important items are equal to, and let's say I want to have a list that I can change because your important items might change over time. And so maybe I can have 7, because you put numbers in, 3.14159, put non-integer numbers in, so floats. Maybe you want to put true in because I like stuff to be true. Put Python in. Maybe you also like to print stuff, so I'll put print in. You can also put functions in lists. And then I'll print my important items are. And then on a new line, I'll print everything and I'll spill it. Set the separation to a new line so everything prints out on a new line. And then I'll print there are, and then put the length of the list. So and then important items, and then items that are important. And because I've taken out spaces here and here, I don't need to adjust the separation. And then I'll run that. And so we've got my important items are 7, 3.14159, true, Python, the built-in function print, and there are 5 items that are important. But let's say I want to edit my list. So I'm going to say important items 0, instead of being 7, it's equal to 2357, which is an awesome number. Then I can change it like that. I don't have to edit the initial list. And now we see it's changed it from 7 to 2357. Maybe I also want to change that function. So I'll say important items -1 is equal to, and then put len, because that's the function we've been using today. And there we go. I changed it again to the built-in function len. And I can make this list